Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to our Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning. He's getting into some interesting material. Started last night. Very good class. If you haven't viewed it, you can check it out on yesterday's YouTube stream. Beautiful, beautiful material, and look forward to hearing more. So let's just jump right in and say hello to the Rabbi. Shalom, Rabbi Schwartz. So good to be with you again. I'm going to turn the class over to you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Hello, everybody. And I'm going to share the screen with you all and go to here. And there should be a chart on the screen. You see it? Right here. Okay. So I have to share. Okay. How's that? Is that there now?
Well, with it, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So now, what I have to do here is I've added another column on the extreme right called level. I go back. So we're doing, for anybody that's just a review, these are 23 of the 613 instructions that the Torah contains. There's 7 categories that pertain to Noahites, to non-Jews, to means anybody that's not Jewish, and not just 7, but quite a few of the 613 categorized and put into 7 categories. This category is do not rob, and I count 23 of the 613 on this category. And we went through these the other day, and I've added now a new column to discuss the level. So on do not rob, that would be mandatory. I don't know what to call it. Mandatory Torah level. Say, critical? Did you say critical? Okay, critical. Good. All right. So, and then the next one, do not steal, which is pretty much like that. I would say that's the same. And then return what you took. Makes a minute sense, and try to undo what you did. And then we went on to the 3 that deal with business, which is a form of robbing. The only difference there is that you didn't take it by force, or when the guy wasn't looking, he was fully aware. It's just that he was not aware of the unfairness of the measures. So he gave you his money, and he was happy with what he got back, but he didn't realize you were cheating him. You may not realize it either. It could be happening and by mistake, but it's wrong. So I think that would be critical too. And do not use false measures, critical. And now, do not retain false measures. There you might say, you have to make your measures correct and do not use false measures, or the positive and negative are the same thing, pretty much. So we call them critical. It's just a lower form of robbing and stealing. But what about do not retain false measures? Now there the Torah was preventing a problem. Presumably there's really not a real injustice by keeping them in your basement or in your garage, never using them, but they could be used. Someone else might come along and use them, not realizing, and so on. So don't invite errors or invite your what's the word I'm looking for? Satan. You don't invite your bad nature to take over. So don't even have them around. So that's not critical, because you're not necessarily hurting anybody yet. It's just you're creating a problem for yourself. So you might say, no, there that it's advisory. What would you say, Dan? Would you call it critical because it is a mitzvah, or would you call it advisory because it's not quite as All right. How about you, Ron? Ron, are you okay with that?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have classified it as critical. It sort of verges that way on the basis that you've got the measures that you shouldn't have. But yeah,
Okay.
not quite critical, but there's a lot in it, isn't there,
So not critical.
of even keeping them.
Okay. Then the last one we did last time was do not overcharge. And there I introduced you to some really weird details that we can do it in another iteration of this chart, go into much more detail. But right here in this exercise, what I wanted to do was examine the various groupings within the category and identify just that the item belongs in this list and that it is either critical or developmental or advisory or something that it's in the ballpark somehow, and should be non-Jews should be aware of it. Jews have to be aware of it. They're not allowed to do this. It's for them. It's in various stages. They're all ethical questions. No, we like you can call it ethical after the fact, but we start by saying this is what God said, so you got to do it. God knows what He's doing. He knows how everything works. So He's saying do this. Even there's going to be some that we don't know why. That we have no idea why God said that. They don't make sense even. They're not contradictory, but they don't really explain much. But because He said it, we'll do it, which is all. That's the ultimate common sense. Don't try and second guess God. So, but you are invited and even challenged to figure it out and see what you can learn from there. And that's what the chinuch does, which is why this number is here that refers us to the chinuch. We can look him up in the text and see what he might say about what we learned from this mitzvah. So anyway, so some of the details here were that what makes it different again is that it's sort of like not being fooled by the measures, but over here everything was accurate. It's just that he said I want $107, and really there was everybody else was charging $100. So you're 7%. Sorry, that's not percent. It's 1/7. So everybody else was charging 6, you charge 7, so that's 1/7 more. You're so in that case you're entitled to an adjustment in the price. The sale stands, but you're entitled to get the extra back. Or if it went the other way, let's say you sold it for 6 and should have charged 7, you're entitled to ask for the extra dollar. It's either way; it goes either way. And it's 1/7. That's the so 1/7 or 1/6. No, I just don't think of it. I have to look that up. But the question was that it could be you could have been go between from going one way up the ladder or down the ladder. It makes it a different percentage, and that the only way I could explain that was that people psychologically don't mind overpaying that much or less than that they don't mind paying, so forget about it. This much they do mind, and if it was more than that, then they can undo the sale. They didn't even want to talk about it. So there's 3 levels there of a result, depending on how much the overcharge was. So that is related to stealing, because you're taking something that you shouldn't have really taken, and even though both parties were okay with it at the time, it's just that information comes out afterwards. The guy finds out that that wasn't quite right, and it's also only relevant to staples, so where there's an established price, like commodities, where we have an established price today on the market, the commodities market. But let's say if it's something unusual, let's say a piece of jewelry that is different than every other piece of jewelry, or an heirloom or an antique or something like that, where there's not a lot of them, So then the price is what you can set your price, and you say, look, if you want it, this is what I'm charging, and then once they do the deal, it's done. You can't go back because a sale is a sale. It's a final sale, unless then there's other rules. Then if the store has a policy, this became very interesting when I discussed it with in a store. So my wife has a store, so she's often sort of pressured, because she sells things that major chains sell, and they always have, you can bring it back. Well, for her, it's not good to bring it back. She's a small store. If somebody buys something in the season and then wants to bring it back after the season, she can't do anything with it for like a whole year. Now the big stores, they can transfer it around to another store, or they got warehouses and storing and so on. And but for her, it made a big difference. So again, there's a context to it. So it becomes a whole field of study. At any rate, right now we've done that for why it's an extra it's necessary as an extra item in the list, and I would call it critical. Would you agree with that? Because you're when you've gone above the norm, you're actually taking something that in the same way with the false measures. Any arguments?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
It can be really hard to determine. Like, I'll use retail shops as an example, not at stock exchange or commodities, but it's really hard to know what is the stable price, because one department store might be what you classify a bid up market for more affluent people, and they have their set price because they're always dear. And then other retailers can be $20, $30 cheaper on the same exact item. Mm-hmm. So where do you draw a stable price from?
So you make a very good point, and that's exactly why generally it's not with manufactured goods. Certainly not in those days, in the early days, not, because every manufactured good is slightly different than the other. Today we have mass production; they're all exactly equal. You could say that everything is a commodity, and now it depends on. But you could make the argument. Let's say the big chain stores, they charge a little more, but they'll maybe free delivery, or you can bring it back forever. They'll always exchange it. They have a better warranty program. All kinds of things like that. Whereas if you go to a small store, they may have 30 days is all I'm going to give you. You can't bring it back after 30 days, or we'll just give you credit. We won't give you your money back. And they do various things like that. So, and even if not everybody does that, but since there's a variety, then you can argue that there's not a stable price. It's not stable. And if there's not a stable price, then it's a done deal. This doesn't apply, because the marketplace is such that depends where you go and who you're shopping with. Might be something, you get a bag that says Bloomingdale's on it. That's worth it to you to pay the extra $10. You can take it home in a Bloomingdale's bag, or used to be here Eaton's bag, or whatever, a fancy store. So you have to look at all the details, but the idea is that you're to agree with you, Ronald, is that this only applies when it's an absolute commodity, when there's a very, very well-known established price for it, and you charged a different amount than the established price. If it's in any way different, it doesn't apply. So in that case, I think you would agree critical, no?
Yes.
Okay. Squeeze it right in. All right. Now, so and again, I'm not trying to just overlook this and say you've raised a real issue, and it's been raised by the rabbis, and they take a lot of trouble to describe it and say it's only talking when there is an established stable price for the very same thing. Okay, let's go on to the next one. And this one is: do not move a landmarker or a border. Why do I need that? So the answer is that here you didn't steal anything. It's still there. You can't move, you can't steal land. Or at least you can steal land the way you steal everything else. Everything else, you take it away. You take it out of the person's possession. They can't access it. They can't find it. They don't know where it is. They can't use it. Here, the land is still there. You can walk on it. You can do whatever you did before. You can still do. It's not really a question of holding it. It's a question of who's able to access it or who can work it, that kind of thing. So it's and land is always a different commodity. Whatever you want to call it, land is always a different commodity. It's not a chattel. Like in other words, there's a you can't get a mortgage on a car. You get a loan, but you can't get a mortgage because it's not considered real property. Because who knows what you're going to do with it? You take it to Europe. I can't get my hands on it. Whereas land, I know exactly where it is, and if I have to attack the land, if I want to take it for security, then I show the documents, you owe me money, and now the land becomes mine, and you can't hide it from me. You can't remove it from my sight. You can't change it. So land always has different rules regarding it, and that's in every society, and that's why it's real estate. It's real estate as opposed to chattels or rights or human rights. Everything else is sort of much more ephemeral. I don't know how to pronounce this word. Ephemeral than land. Land is there, so that's why you need a new law to describe it. Because maybe you'll say, "Look, I didn't take the land; it's still there, so I moved the marker. It was my marker, and I put it where I wanted." But then everybody's going to say, "Oh, I think that's his land," or he can put his put his vegetable patch down that strip, and you better not walk on it. He took possession of it. He made it sound like it was his. So that was called that. Do not move a land marker. That was in the old days before they had surveys and other ways of defining where the land was. So you move a land marker, you could easily change the ownership just by people think now that it went up to there. So it's always been a problem that we've helped today with the surveys. So the reason I'm putting for what happened there? Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah. It's like that. Just move that down. It's just a little thing. Land doesn't change hands, and that's why I think everybody has to agree with me. That's got to be critical because it's like that everywhere. Okay. So now we come to the next one, and we have do not falsely deny a debt. Why do you need that? Now here you're cheating somebody. You owe them the money, and you're denying it. So you're affecting his resources, his wealth. But what makes this different is that what happened is originally he asked you for some money. You needed to borrow some money, and you gave it to him willfully. You were, I don't know if you were happy to give it to him, but you agreed to give him the money, and you made arrangements that he may pay you. And even if you took security or not for you may have taken a mortgage on a piece of land, or you may have taken he may have given you a gold ring, but you want your money paid. You want the money back, and he's denying any debt. Especially if you didn't take security, that can happen a lot. So I lent you $1,000, you said you pay me back. Now you're denying I ever gave it to you, forgot, whatever. It's been a while, so that's wrong. And but you can argue that the reason you need it is because I didn't take it from him against his will. I didn't take it when he wasn't looking. None of these ideas about robbing and stealing, and or even against his awareness. He was aware that I took the money, and he was giving it to me. It's not land. It's not an overcharge. So it's just a lie. But by lying, I'm taking his um, property, his assets. So that's why that's like really robbing, but not robbing in the normal way. So the taking was legal, but now through the lie, now he's stealing. And so really that's just stealing, but in a less physical way. And so the Torah enlarges the umbrella under which it stands and says, well, you have to realize it's not only taking something, but it's also denying somebody access to what they really is rightfully theirs. So we'll call that critical too. No arguments. The next stage is do not swear falsely, rate debt. So this is really the same thing as the one before. What's different here? Do not swear falsely. This is falsely deny. This is swear falsely. Isn't that a false denial? What's different? Any ideas? What happens when you swear? So I'll tell you something interesting. I was reviewing this with my group in India, and they told me that in India, when you go to court and you have to take an oath, they'll ask you, depending on your ethnic background, if you're Hindu, which is the majority there, they'll ask you to swear by the Lord Gita. And if you're Christian, they'll ask you to swear by the New Testament. And if you're Muslim, that's the other great number, they'll ask you to swear by the Quran. And I found that fascinating because what it tells you is that everybody recognizes that there's one supreme being. They call it by different names, but everybody recognizes there's one guy, or one person, or one entity that's supreme, that if I take an oath by that person, I'm inviting that power to strike me dead or punish me or do something if I'm lying. You're invoking the truth of the supreme being to confirm that I'm telling the truth, and let him strike me dead or mess me up if I'm lying. So you're calling upon that. You're affirming that you're telling the truth by affirming your association with an absolute entity. So everybody, in other words, the whole system there, the court system, is based on that people recognize there's a supreme authority. I found that very fascinating. Usually you think in Hindu that they believe in many gods, but they do have one that they'll swear by. And it's the same idea as for the Christians and Muslims, which just everybody wants to use their own name. That's fine. So lying with God's name is just invoking, just trying to make the lie better. That's really the same thing. So you'd have to say that that's critical, especially since we'll see that it also can turn into one of the other. It comes under the roof of another one of the 7 categories, the 7 Noahide laws. Blaspheming God, using his name in vain, same idea. But we'll get to that later. Now we come to any questions so far? Oh, good.
No.
Okay. So now we come to do not withhold payment of a debt. So here, now you're not even, you're agreeing. I owe the money. I owe you. Yes, I owe you the money. But I'm not paying you. It's like, I like that. Yes, you're right. I borrowed the money. Yes, I have it. I'm not paying you right now. I need it for somebody else. I don't want to pay you right now. It's not convenient. Whatever the excuse is, he agrees that he owes you the money. So what would you say? Is he stealing? Anybody? Ron?
Depends on the intention in the long run, I suppose. If he's putting it off because it's not viable at the moment, or he's going to keep putting it off because he really doesn't want to pay it back?
Well, so the parameters, okay, the details in this mitzvah would be that if it's not due, so then, then there's no problem. It's not due. You didn't agree to pay yet. If it is due, talking about where it is due, and you have the money. But for some reason, you're not giving it to him. It may be because you want to use it for something else. It could be you'd have to you want to buy something else with it. You just whatever reason you don't want to give it to him. You want to keep the money longer than was originally agreed. Basically, it comes down to that for whatever reason. Yeah. But you do have it, because if you don't have it, you'll say, I as soon as I get it, I'll give it to you. You can't. I can't be held liable for something that I have no choice in. So I just don't have it. I'm sorry. I meant to have it. I did have it. I thought I have it. The guy said he'd give it to me, whatever the excuse is, but I just don't have it. Well, if that's the case, then I can't, like personally, how do I feel about what my situation is? Am I disobeying a Torah instruction? I'm not disobeying. I don't have the wherewithal to follow it. So you can't hold me it can't be a crime. It could be a failure to plan ahead and so on, but it's not a crime. So we're talking in a case where I have the money, I just refuse to give it to you. Now, this might also, by the way, there are situations where we'll see a little later in the list. Let me wait till I get a little later in the list. Right now, I'm just saying, I'm just denying you the access. I don't want to give you the money. Now I have it. I don't want to give it to you. So, would you call that actual stealing because it's due, or would you call that developmental or something else? Let me get some.
I see it as stealing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think if you have the money, you ought to pay it. But when we say you're, there's another way to, say it's critical. There's another way you could discuss what's the remedy. That would be another thing you could do, because sometimes the remedy is extreme punishment. Sometimes the remedy is right. Yes. So that's why I'm saying it's critical. So what do I say here is why you need this. So in this case, you need this because you're not using God's name. You're not even lying. You're just not keeping your commitment. And your commitment was to give them the money. You have it. So you have to have an extra statement in the Torah saying, don't do that. That's not right. So the Torah comes along and says, don't withhold the money when you have it and you agreed to give it, and there it is. So even though I know you didn't steal it originally, you didn't rob it, you didn't cheat him, you're just not keeping your commitment to give it back at the right time. So that's also a form of stealing, and don't do that. So I think it makes a lot of sense that it's just a further development of the same idea. And so we can call it critical. But now we come to an interesting thing. Do not delay wages. Now, I didn't take anything from you. You worked for me, right? So I didn't take anything from you. I never, ripped off your bicycle, and I didn't cheat you with the mislead you with the measures, and I'm sort of withholding payment, right? But I never took money from you. So it's not like I have your money. Do I have your money? You worked for me, and now I said I'd pay you. So you see the similarity? Like it's different, and it's the same. Right? So let's see what I got here. What I got here is I never took the money. Oh, here I took money. Never I took money. Just time. I took your time. But because of that, I owe you money. And now, if I don't pay you on time, then it's the same as I'm not paying you when I committed to pay you the loan. Right? So I need another statement to tell me that this too is of the same order. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
So we'll call it critical. Okay. Now, the next one is make the plural. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So we're up to here. So far, it's makes pretty good sense, but all these statements were necessary. They build up the case. You can't just say, don't steal, because people would weasel out and say this or that. So the Torah makes it more. So what I'm saying is that for the Jewish people, the source, the ones that are responsible for developing these ideas and promulgating them and so on and everything, so they were broken down to these. For the Noahides, we have 7 categories, and they're just as culpable. They're just as involved in these things. But for them, it was just described in a general way. But all these items belong in the same category and should be
Considered such, sure.
Understandable that everybody should be following these.
Agreed.
Okay. So that's the purpose of this chart. And
I appreciate the illumination on that. Ronald, you got any comments before we sign off?
No, not really. I was just going to say with that Rabbi put there just time. I was thinking of your skills as well, and you committed your time and skills.
Yeah, energy.
To produce effort to do something for the employer.
Right.
So he should justly pay you on time. Yes.
Yeah, we see that more and more in this day and age, where people want their staff on call after billable hours, and they add up. And
your skills you still have, but your time you don't have anymore. Right? I used your time.
No, it's replaced a form of slavery for sure. Yeah, right. It's time for money, and yeah.
Okay, so there's some interesting things about that too. Okay, so what do? We do stop share, and
okay, so we're not on for tomorrow because the Rabbi's got an engagement, and we will be back on Thursday though, and yeah, we're going to continue here on Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will be back this Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. With more Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning. And I'm finding this very interesting and relevant because it's practical and generally universal. It's code of conduct and how you function in this world. And it's critical. And yeah, if you want to be an upright, righteous person, you've got to function righteously for sure. And yes, thank you so much for sharing, Rabbi. So, okay, I'm going to sign out for now, but we will be back on Thursday. Till then, have a wonderful day, everybody.